UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your hosts, Dr. Dean Bertram and Jen Durrell.
Well, hey, baby.
Hey, baby.
How was your day today? I'm asking you every week now. Any paranormal stories from the location you work at?
Nope. Unfortunately.
Dang, it's the second week in a row I haven't pre-tested that question. It's the second week in a row. You've been like, no, not this week.
Yeah. No, I don't have anything good.
Well, it's so dang hot in Missouri. Maybe it's keeping the spirits away.
It's way too hot, especially in that lodge.
It's hot up here too.
Yeah. So how was your day?
I was mainly doing yard work today, mowing my lawns, doing my garden.
All the fun stuff.
The fun stuff, catching up on some reading. Although tonight, since I talked to you, like we chatted around 9 o'clock, and then I said I have to go and let my chickens in, or lock my chickens in rather for the night, because I have chickens that free range, as regular listeners probably know. And I went out, I do a head count now, because in past years I haven't done a head count. The next morning you're like, there's a missing chicken. So I did my head count and I was down one hen.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so there's a buckeye hen missing, which means it's either gone and nested somewhere, so it's roosting where it nests, because sometimes chickens will do that here because there's lots of places for them in the woods and that to build their nests, or it means a raccoon or something else snagged it, which means I'll be
Hopefully
either
not.
setting a trap or hunting some kind of varmint sometime in the near future. So I hope tomorrow morning I'll wake up and it'll just be wandering around outside. That's the hope anyway. Well, before I keep yabbering on about my poultry, we should move into the show proper. So tonight's guest has been interested in the paranormal since she was a young child. Excuse me. In 2010, with a group of like-minded paranormal enthusiasts, she formed an investigative team called St. Croix Paranormal. The group has traveled all over the US to well-known haunted locations in search of answers. The group were featured on the Biography Channel series My Ghost Story, and they produced their own local cable show, Paranormal Patrol. In her travels, she realized that she wanted to have her own haunted location to research at and allow others to do the same. And in 2018, she fulfilled that long-time dream of owning her own haunted location when she purchased the Boyd House in Minnesota. So I'm delighted to welcome to the show Jill Shelley. Welcome to Talking Weird.
Hello.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Mm-hmm.
And the Boyd House, what a fascinating location, which I'm sure we'll get to shortly. But do you want to tell us a little bit first about how your initial interest in the paranormal began? Because I know it dates back to your childhood.
Yeah, I just kind of like one of those weird kids that always was kind of fascinated by, ghosts and spirits and all that kind of spooky stuff. But my grandmother's house, actually, we always had a weird vibe in one of the rooms. It was always just, unwelcoming.
Yeah.
And you just always felt like somebody didn't want you there. So we didn't play in there, and it was always freezing cold. But I remember one night it was just my parents sleeping in the other room, and I was in the what we called the girls' room. And I kind of just woke up in the middle of the night. My back was facing the door, but I heard footsteps coming out of that room, and it stopped at my door. And as a little kid, I'm maybe, I don't know, maybe 8. I'm like freaking out now. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? There's a boogeyman there. And you could just feel the most intense feel. Like he was just staring right through you. But I was too terrified to turn around. So I just kind of whipped the blankets over the head, And then you could hear the footsteps go back. And I was kind of like freaked out about it. So in the morning, I kind of mentioned it. I knew my parents hadn't gotten up because they were actually snoring in the room. But my grandmother, who's extremely religious, just kind of said, "Oh, honey, that's a ghost and he's not going to hurt you." And I thought, wow, Grandpa doesn't even think this is like a big deal. This is kind of cool. So then that kind of fueled everything, I think, just to study and know more about ghosts. And so I kind of read a lot of books from the libraries. I watched movies, documentaries, all that kind of thing. And then, like we said, in 2010, I guess with the advent of also the ghost hunter shows, I was like, oh my God, you can do this. You can like investigate.
Mhm.
So I think in 2010, when I started meeting some people with the same common interests, is when we kind of formed our group and started St. Croix Paranormal and started traveling all over and just having all kinds of crazy experiences since then.
Yeah. So you started investigating in 2010? So
Right.
What was your first location, though?
Oh, my gosh. It was really kind of scary, actually. Your first one's always spooky because you never really had, you'd have a few weird experiences as you're growing up, but nothing major. But it was kind of funny. It was a apartment building that my daughter was a caretaker for. And it was haunted. And she said there was this one apartment that these people, they moved out because it got to be too much for them. So I didn't know anything. I said, don't tell me nothing. I don't want to know nothing. I'm going to go in there blind. I'm going to see what I find out. You tell me what you know. So I go in there and I started getting like this really intense feel. I'm the only one in there too. So, this is really good. My first time on it just by myself. And I just get like all this intense feel, like the energy, like there's something around me. And I had a K2 meter and it started to respond to questions. So we came up to that it was a female child. Okay. And then we decided to play some games and we got like an EVP that actually said neener, neener, neener when we were playing. And it said, you can't catch me. Because we were playing like a game of tag and stuff. So that was like really cool to validate that. So, I told my daughter, I go, okay, it's a little girl. And she was like, yeah. So the people used to see a little girl come down their hallway and she just appeared to them all the time. So we kind of validated both the things that came. But what kind of pushed them on is they had a cross on the wall that flew off one day and they're like, okay, that's it. So they moved out. So we don't know if that turned into something else. We did think we could get a woman's voice, like a real mean woman voice. So maybe that could have been something. But what I found was really funny is my daughter's really terrified of ghosts. So it's pretty hilarious. So when she moved out herself, she's like, oh, go check out my apartment. She had an incident with a balloon. And I said, so she had an incident with a balloon where it came down like out of her room, so it had to like duck down, go over through the doorway, up over, and then turn around to go into the bathroom. So that happened to her while she was taking a bath. This balloon just showed up in the bathtub. And I said, hey, did you ever do anything crazy to scare my daughter? And it goes, balloon. So that was kind of cool that was like our first place that we had investigated. So got some kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. Good grief, between balloons and crucifixes flying off the wall. It's like the Amityville Horror meets It or something. It's like a genuine horror movie.
Yeah.
And that's something I always ask. It's a point of contention between Jen and I, which we talk about on the show occasionally. Yeah. And that's, Jen has a more standard, I suppose, paranormal investigator interpretation, is that there are spirits of the departed and maybe there's some demonic energies as well. But I tend to lean towards that it's all demonic, or perhaps it's things tricking us and pretending to be children or pretending to be something else. In your many investigations, have you encountered anything, Jill, that you thought might have been demonic or might have been trying to present itself as a departed human spirit while it might have been something else?
I wouldn't say that we've had anything like you say that they pretend it's a child to get to you so you can interact and give it more energy that we know of. I guess I should say that we know of. Yeah. We've only had maybe just a handful of times of I wouldn't even call it demonic. I would just call it more of a heavy negative presence. I wouldn't say anything demonic. I just recently, the only thing I guess I would kind of say was bad is that we were just actually last weekend at the Stevenson building in Nebraska.
Mhm.
And they have had, he's got like an oddity museum. So it's got a lot of negative stuff, it's got some really awesome, cool stuff, but a lot of negative energies attached with that. So they do have a lot of negative stuff. But after I was tired because I'm the driver, so I had to go to sleep. Then apparently everything happened and I slept through the whole thing. But my friend actually got like this big hand just like come on her head like this, and just she could feel the fingers going through the energy. Then she got a scratch on the inside of her leg right after that had happened. And then she said the weirdest thing, and this has never happened to her day, and she's been with me since 2010, that she said it was like inside my head. She's like, I can't even explain it, but somehow they got in my head and I saw this guy with black eyes and just flashed in front of me. And then we had come to find out, because I mentioned it to the owner the next day, and he's said if you had watched the Portals to Hell episode, they actually had a psychic say that there's an entity with black eyes that likes to scratch people. And neither one of us have actually seen that show, so I wouldn't say it was planted in her subconsciously, because none of us have actually watched that episode yet. So I found that was a kind of a really interesting, correlation. But I think as far as like demonic or evil, that would probably be as most as we've gotten. We've gotten pushed and scratched at other locations, but for her to see that was kind of creepy.
That is creepy. That is very creepy.
I'm
So how did
interested. You
go
go.
ahead.
No, you go, Jen.
No, I was just going to find out, how did you even find the Boyd house?
Actually, like I said, with all our travels, wanting to buy my own location, it's not like they advertise, hey, this house is haunted and for sale. So I just kind of would go off my feel, not that I'm psychic, but sometimes you just kind of get a really good vibe on things. And my realtor was pretty cool. She knew what I was looking for. So we would be doing mini investigations. So we did, Boyd wasn't my first house that I looked at. But when I came across it, I was just really drawn to it. Like I kept looking at the pictures, and I don't know, it's almost like I became obsessed in a way of just looking at these pictures, and I hadn't even been there yet. And I know when I went to go look at it, the realtor was running a little late. So Donna, one of my teammates that was with me, we were just sitting outside, and I was just kind of like, we usually, if we're getting a feel, we don't say anything for a while. We just see if somebody gets a feel. And I was just like, hey, you kind of feel like somebody's staring at you right now? She goes, yeah, from the attic. I'm like, exactly. So you just kind of got that feel. And then when we kind of went in there, we kind of got like a really heavy feel of somebody just like looking at you from afar, like they didn't know who we were. We actually got a response on the spirit box that actually said, who are you? Because this is like the first time anybody's really tried to communicate with them. And we also got some REM pod interaction with about 10 minutes after being there that started to go off. So just kind of had a good couple spirit box responses. And I had spoke to a medium that I really trust. And she's like, yeah, there's at least 6 spirits that are there. And then interesting enough, I hadn't purchased it. I hadn't made an offer yet. She said, yeah, your first night that you spend there, you're gonna see the man from the garden come in through the back door, or you're going to experience that. And I was like, looking back on it now, she already knew I was going to move forward and buy the house. And so that first night I stayed there, I'm like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. And nothing was going on. I was like, oh, I'm kind of disappointed. I thought, this guy was going to come. But as I walked by the basement door, which leads to the outside back door, there was like this loud bam, 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 bam as I walked by. And of course, I jumped really high. So that could have been what she kind of meant, because he would have came in through the back door and then probably would have came out through the basement steps. I tried to debunk it. It wasn't like airflow, anything like that, because it's actually a double door to the outside. So there was two doors they would have had to come through, but that was completely dead bolted, locked up. And if it was like even just airflow, it would have just been a rattle of the door, but it was actually like the sound of fists. Like that's what I had to do to replicate what had happened on the door. So that was kind of interesting to have that. And then there was to confirm that, which I'd never told anybody what the psychic said. there's somebody in the neighborhood who says that they can see things. And she's like, yeah, there's always a man I see out in the garden, and he just like walks into the house and he just disappears. So yeah, it's just all kind of validated that that things are definitely happening there at the Boyd house.
Yeah. So did you get to talk to the neighbors? Like, did anybody else have any experiences besides the one that could actually see the spirit?
Yeah, there's some that sometimes will say that they'll see lights on when they know nobody's there. It's a real small town. It's probably like 175 people, and so it's pretty dead. So everybody just kind of knows everybody. But yeah, there's they say sometimes they see shadows or somebody standing in the windows, things like that. They'll see that. The original owner, when we first asked them, when I purchased the house, because we were like, hey, have you had any experiences? And they weren't too open. They're a little bit more open now talking about it now that they kind of see what's going on with the house, that they weren't that crazy. Because you know how, as investigators, a lot of when you're going to private homes, these people think they're crazy.
Yeah.
And so they don't really want to talk about it. But when I did purchase it, they did think that, as she said, that she thought the house was a little off. But she said that she would hear like old time music playing. Their daughter had seen like a man several times. They've seen a man sitting in a chair. Just kind of oddball stuff. They kind of blew a lot of stuff off.
Yeah.
People who had slept there sometimes would feel like they would get a tap on the shoulder and be woken up at night. So, just kind of a lot of different experiences throughout the years. But I think me being there the first time, actually encouraging it, it's really taken off a lot.
Yeah.
So
they got somebody to talk to now.
Oh yeah, it took them a while, but they've come around.
Have you been able to investigate, or let me rephrase that, during your investigations in the Boyd house, yours or anybody else's investigations, have you been able to identify who any of the spirits are or who any of the spirits were?
Yeah, we have Fred Eckert. So he was actually one of the owners in 1912, and he actually was a really well-known businessman in town. He had his own, basically a general store, and sold dry goods, high-end things. He was also part of the fire department, the school board. He helped build a church. So a very well-respected man in town. So he actually died in the home. His wife died in the home as well. Her funeral services were held in the home. And also two of their children passed away in that home as well. One choked to death when he was about 3, and then one died in infancy as well. But we do get a lot of, EVP saying, I'm Fred, or Fred's coming. So a lot to deal with Fred. We do get quite a bit that Minnie is there as well. So we do know that. We've had a lot of other names that have come up that are real constant, but as far as being able to pinpoint like on my deed or anything as to who they actually are, that I haven't been able to find out yet.
So what about the children? What did they pass of?
Well, the one choked to death, and then the one just died in his infancy. So I don't know. I'm just SIDS, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So those are the only children that we know of, but we do get a lot of childlike activity. A lot of people hear children laughing, playing. We do get a lot of the toys that are interactive toys. Will get played with quite a bit. So people do hear that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of. No, you go again, Jen.
I can't help myself. So the other people that are in there that you don't really have documented, have you tried to, I'm sure you have, but I mean, have you figured out the link of who they are to the people that passed away there? I mean, like in any documents in the Historical Society or anything like that?
We have been to the Historical Society. It's been a while. When we first went, I didn't have the deed, so I didn't have names. I was doing mostly history on Boyd. We do get the name Henry quite a bit, but I haven't found. I don't have a last name. I mean, it's so hard to go off of that. The thing with the town is it was back in the day, like an old Wild West town. Like I have pictures of, the horses and the wagons and the cowboys and and all that. And it was just huge. They had hotels and barbershops and,
Yeah.
meat markets, everything. And now it's just like, 2 businesses in town pretty much,
Oh,
and a
wow.
bar and a bar. So there's like nothing. So we were like actually we're kitty corner from the base of town. And they're actually, the blacksmith shop used to be right across the street with the livery stable. And the house was right there, right on the edge of town. And it was also really located borderline of the Sioux Dakota reservation line. So there could have been a lot of stuff going on. And the town is also a big railroad town as well.
Oh, wow.
And the tracks pretty much run right through the backyard.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of energy going on. A lot of energy in that town.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the whole town is one giant liminal space.
Yeah.
You were talking before about being scratched, or your fellow investigators being scratched or pushed or bumped by entities, which is something I always find fascinating. Has any of that gone on in the Boyd house? Has anybody felt physical manifestations pressing against them or scratching them or touching them in the house?
I have had one investigator say he almost got like a pinch. He just kind of really felt like we're assuming it was Fred, did not want him upstairs. So he kind of felt like oppressed and not allowed to go upstairs. So he would like feel somebody grab or pinch his arm, he said it left a mark. We've had people like when they're trying to sleep, like their feet will get played with. So they'll get that kind of stuff. So we feel like that's like a childlike activity. The first night Donna and I actually stayed there, we were, before we really had any furniture, we had air mattresses blown up down in the living room. And she woke up in the middle of the night. She felt somebody crawl in to bed with her and like snuggle up with her. She's like, it was like small, like a kid. I first looked over thinking, was it you? Like you got scared or something and you were crawling into bed with me. And I looked over there and you were sound asleep. So I was just like, okay. So she had that happen. And then we've had like people and I've even had my shirt tugged on. So you'll get just that kind of innocent, type of stuff going on there too.
Is there a particular room that's the most active?
It just depends on any given day.
Mainly the whole house.
Yeah. I mean, there's Sundays where I'm like, okay, it's totally the upstairs. That's where the main stuff is. And then sometimes I'll go there and I get nothing. And then it'll be the main floor. Or it'll be it just so varies on what's going to happen. Like I can never guess what's going to happen. I don't know. Different stuff every day.
Yeah. What about every time? Go ahead.
There you go.
So what about have you figured out the personalities of the people who passed away? Like you mentioned, Fred, is he more kind of dominant and just doesn't want anybody there, or is he more
No, he
open?
likes it. Yeah, he likes to talk to people. I think after a while though, or if you get on his nerves, then he's kind of like, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
We also have a lady that's super crabby. I get her voice a lot, and she talks like she smoked like 100 cigarettes a day. So she kind of talks like this all the time,
God.
And she's super crabby, so she's always like, get out. My favorite one I got from her is I was the only one in the house, and when I'm there, a lot of times I just yammer on about, hey, this was my week, and I think I was like, hey, I'm going to a wedding. You ever been to a wedding? And so I'm just like talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get this EVP, and she mumbled something, but because of course I was talking, I talked over it. I couldn't make out it. But I stopped talking. Then you heard her say, "I'm trying to sleep." So it's like, yeah, I think she was mad that I was just rambling on about stuff, and she's trying to take a nap. So we get her a lot. We had some inappropriate dinner conversation one time. Something you wouldn't talk about back in the 1900s. Mm-hmm. And we got an EVP that says, "You're not very proper, are you?" And so she was not very pleased with our dinner conversation that night. So,
have you come up with any theories since you're experiencing that in the home, as if they're, right there with you? Do you have an opinion of, life after death?
With them, I think it's just a really good attachment to the home. They have a lot of
Mhm.
memories. They don't want to leave. And I think that's probably a majority of some spirits in
Yeah.
some locations. And I just think that they're happy there. They're fine. I've asked them, they don't want to leave and they're enjoying it. And I think they like now too, because I'm learning more and more about them.
Yeah.
I've actually met with their great, or not, no, I think he's just a grandson. Yeah. And he's told me stories about
Oh,
them.
well,
And
that's
so,
good.
and so I will ask them questions. Actually, on the spirit box, he told me that his grandmother, whose name was Minnie, fell down the stairs and broke her arm.
Hmm.
And I would never get to know that information. And so I just happened to randomly say it on the spirit box. I'm like, who fell down and broke her arm? And plain as day on the spirit box said Minnie.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that's fascinating. I
yeah.
mean, I would be like hooked after that, just asking questions and questions and questions.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, like you said, we kind of I started this because I was more afraid to die, and I just didn't
Mhm.
want, this is it. I can't handle that. It's like there's got to be something more.
Right.
I can't deal.
Mhm.
So with all the investigating that I've done, I proved to myself, okay, there is another side. So now I kind of shift a little bit of my investigating questions to is what is it like over there? Like,
Right.
what can you tell me?
Mhm.
So we've got some things, whether they're true or valid or not, I don't know. Such as your loved ones come to get you when you die.
Mhm.
We have had them say that you do meet new people when you're dead.
Mhm.
So it's just kind of just some simple questions that we ask. We do know what I found in my experiences. If you're trying to ask questions about God or heaven or anything like that, it's just an immediate shutdown. Like
Right.
you're not going to get to know that information, and we can't
Mhm.
tell you that information. So I tend to stay away from that question just so I can keep the communications going with the different questions that I have.
Yeah. So what equipment works best for you when you
Uh,
do
for
that?
for me, I really really like the spirit box. And I have like every kind, like the SB7, the 11, the S
Mhm.
box, the portal. Just because I love the science behind it. And we've gotten some really great results. Things that you can't explain. Like actually for at the Boyd House, I was running the spirit box, and I actually have a picture of Fred and Minnie Eckhart in the bedroom of their wedding photo.
Mhm.
So I was pointing at the wedding photo and I said, "Hey, is anybody here? Any of these people in this picture?" And it said, "Do you mean the Eckarts?" Like plain as day. So how can you say that came from a DJ on the radio? Yeah, are they going to say that in the middle of this little town? I don't think so. So I just love the science behind that. And we actually just started now doing the Estes method. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
familiar with that
Yeah.
one.
Mhm.
So having our person blindfolded and head folded and asking the questions, it's we've started to get some really incredible results from that too. Not
Yeah.
so much, we haven't tried it yet at the Boyd House, but we've tried it out on a couple investigation, not, and our minds have just been completely blown
Oh, yeah.
on it. So
Yeah, that technique's pretty fascinating.
yeah, I think the coolest one, we were just at the Old Salem Hospital House in Salem, Illinois, and that was the first time we actually did it.
Uh-huh.
And we had a really cool downstairs conversation. It was like a little boy, and he said, I forget what he told me his name was now, but it started with a V. Anyway, he told us our name. He goes, "This is a hospital, don't you know? My mom's here. She's sick." Like how does that even
Yeah.
happen? But then we had this whole conversation. We go up to this room, and this room is known for, like, people are not welcome in the room, negative stuff. People get, scratched, pushed, whatever. We go in there. The first three words out of her mouth are leave, go away, get. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, we just kind of want to talk to you. We want to get to know you. Is that like okay? And then she goes, and she said it was a guy that said, "It's time for prayers," like really angry. And I
Oh.
said, "Oh, well, do you want us to say the Our Father then?" Yes. So we
Oh.
did the Our Father, and the whole time we're doing it, they're like, "Great, love it, keep it up, keep going." Get done. I'm like, "How was that?" "Good. Do it again." And I'm like, "Ah." So me and my buddy are like, "Our Father who art in heaven," like really fast. And then she's like,
Yeah.
"Say it slower." So I'm like, oh my God, we were really having this conversation
Huh.
with a ghost. And then he's like, is it morning? And I kind of knew what time it was. I knew it was like 12:30. I go, yeah, it's 12:30 in the morning. No, it's not. It's 12:41. So we pulled out our phone. It was 12:41. We're like, how do you know that? I just know. And then he started to tell us a story about how his son died and fell off a horse. So we just had this complete conversation. And every time we're like, okay, well, we're going to, no, don't go. Keep talking to me. It was just crazy. And then we even cracked a couple jokes and you'd be like, ha ha. Or, and one time when the investigator and I were talking, one of the other ones, just kind of whispering amongst ourselves about something, she'd be like, stop talking, I'm talking. So it was just crazy to have this, like, we were just so mind blown by this. It was just incredible.
Have you tried, pendulums or dowsing rods or anything like that? Has that ever worked for you?
We've tried the pendulum once or twice. I'm not real sold on that. I'm kind of skeptical about that. The dowsing rods, yeah, they're fun to play with. We don't really own a pair. So again, I don't really get to play with that too much. So I think I found some that somebody left behind. I'm like, ooh, these are fun. So
yeah.
So yeah, I like some of the more technical, gadgets, I guess, and then just your own inner self is like your best tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you found the more you investigate, the more in tuned or sensitive you become.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think more so with the Boyd House, just because I'm more comfortable with them.
Okay.
We're kind of getting to know each other. They seem to think I'm the person that like is a caretaker. So we're working on that. Just from some of the responses I've gotten, I'm like, I own this house, but whatever. So, but yeah, we develop a relationship. I would always say I'm kind of one of those people that I kind of know when I feel like something's around me. You kind of get that energy. I kind of know that. But that's as far as I go. I'm not psychic. I can't talk to them. I've only seen like one shadow in my entire life, never a full blown apparition.
As the caretaker, as you said, at the Boyd House, do you begin to feel protective of the way people interact with the entities there? Like, do you have investigators come in and you're like, don't provoke them, or don't be mean, or is there that kind of feeling ever when you have to deal with other investigators?
Not so much. I mean, we just always ask anyway that you don't provoke. Just because you just need to be respectful regardless. And, it's kind of how we are on all the investigations. So if you're sitting here yelling and screaming at somebody and provoking it, you're really not going to want to come out and talk to them. Now, can I prevent what they're doing? No, I can't, but I can just hope that everybody follows the rules. So I actually really enjoy seeing what everybody brings out when they're doing like live feeds or any evidence that they put out. It's just really fun to see what kind of communications that other people are getting.
Yeah. Have you had any investigators that didn't follow the rules? Like, if you had any certain rules, did someone do something that you didn't really want them to do?
Not that I know of. Most of it's like kind of weird stuff. Like, you would never think, like I always said, this is my house of notes of like, don't do this, don't do that. I actually had to put don't move the furniture sign around the house, because sometimes, like, you figure if you move like a small chair or something, kitchen chair or whatever, but like, no, when your couch gets moved to a different area of the house, you're just kind of like, okay. So yeah, just more stuff like that is what it's come down to, which is really weird, but whatever.
So since you found the Boyd, how does one find a haunted location, though? I mean, you said that you knew that it was possibly haunted, but you weren't for sure, or?
Not when I first, was looking. You had to go down and do the investigation. Like I said, it was more of a intuitive thing by me looking at it and getting that kind of feel for that. And so I'm still looking for another property. So I do the same thing right now. So, it's always kind of a leap of faith and just kind of go off of your investigation techniques. Like I said, it was not the first house that I looked at. I went to other places that I thought maybe were, and I didn't get anything from that. Doesn't mean it wasn't haunted, just didn't get anything that day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
How's the town of Boyd reacted to you having the Boyd house? I mean, as you said, it's such a small town now. I suppose there comes a notoriety to the town with you having a location there, which is well known as a haunted house.
It wasn't very welcomed at first. It was just kind of a weird thing. But now I think a lot of the townspeople, now that we've gotten to know them personally, they're getting more of an idea of what's really going on in the house. They've met a lot of investigators who are, like I said, most of them are extremely respectful. So it's a small town. And of course, they want to talk to people. So just, they've kind of embraced, what's been going on. And of course, it helps bring some economy to the town, to the cafe and things like that. It took a bit. So, but they've come a long way. They're great people though. Nice people there.
So is there any history? You had mentioned there was it a reservation or it was just a land that was near?
It was bordered on the Sioux Dakota reservation line. So I'm sure there was probably a lot of different fightings, probably deaths, I'm assuming, between Americans and the Native Americans. I don't know exactly where, but I do know actually in that county back, I think it was like the 1700s, became a really deep frost, and a lot of the Native Americans froze to death. So they had a lot of deaths that way as well. So, like I said, just, they didn't keep much history as well as we wish they would have back then. So we have no idea what happened on that land, even in the town, just like I said, a lot of different things. But I do know they did have a guy that got killed on the railroad tracks, but nobody knows what happened, if it was suicide or if he just fell in. Nobody seems to know the story on that. And then just kind of oddly enough, back in the day, they wouldn't let them butcher animals in town, so they had to take them out to the railroad tracks and slaughter them there. So it was kind of like a weird thing.
That is weird.
To rewind,
go ahead.
You go.
Okay, you mentioned there were 6 spirits. So there's Fred, Minnie, the 2 children, and then the lady with the gruff voice. What was the 6th one?
We're not really sure who everybody is. We get different names all the time. I think sometimes too we just get passerbyers as well.
Gotcha.
But I've gotten the name Henry several times, and a psychic actually said that she spoke with a spirit that said her husband's name was Henry. And again, not dating back to any of the deed information that I have. Interesting, somebody got an EVP of a girl named Lisa, and I bought a doll that supposedly is haunted named Lisa. So that may or may not be. We do try to, we brought the home back to more of the 1900s period. So when we were getting it, we kind of did a lot of renovations, like putting up the old Victorian wallpaper. The house is filled with all Victorian furniture, all old stuff. So antiques. So who knows what, if anything, may have been attached to that. And of course, you have to have the onslaught of creepy dolls that you have to put in there for the children. So we actually took a dollhouse and I made the inside of it an exact replica of the Boyd house, all the way down to furniture and little people. And it's like, my husband's like, that's really creepy. I didn't know that's what you were going to do when you bought that. So.
I wanted to rewind a little bit to one of Jen's questions and ask it slightly differently. When she was asking you about you looking at buying it and how if you knew it was haunted, I'd like to know is, I've never spoken to anybody before who's actually bought a haunted location. If you were going to recommend to somebody how they would go about finding a place to buy that was a haunted location, what would be your insider track knowledge on how somebody would do that?
Well, I guess they do actually have a few sites. I think Facebook actually has one about haunted houses for sale. So you can kind of go on there. Of course, I did look, but there's nothing in my state of Minnesota. I couldn't find anything. It could just be word of mouth. You might
Yeah.
hear somebody say that house is haunted and it's for sale. Or if you're, intuitive or have a psychic medium that can help you, just kind of going with that. So, nobody really, well, once in a great while, you'll see an ad for my house is haunted, but very rarely will you see that.
Huh. So with all of the investigative shows that you mentioned earlier that you used to watch, um, which one of those would you say it is kind of like a, I don't know, mentor or someone that you enjoyed watching or maybe still enjoy watching?
I liked watching a lot of those shows like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventure more
Yeah.
for the history and like, oh, there's a location I can go to,
Hey, yeah.
that kind of thing. I kind of liked more of the real life caught on camera type
Yeah.
stuff, or like we were on My Ghost Story, shows like that where it was more real and they had some
Yes.
footage and things. So I got
Mhm.
more into that. So I guess I can't say there was anybody that I had looked up to as like following some of their
Yeah.
techniques or anything. So yeah, more the more
Yeah.
the more the real thing,
Yeah.
'cause it's more fun to see that kind of thing.
Mhm. So what about your favorite? Well, I don't know. Did I already ask your favorite haunted location? Did I already ask
Uh,
that one?
no.
Okay.
It's more. It's hard to pinpoint because it's always like each one has like a special place. Like,
That's
okay, this
true.
happened at that, this happened at that.
Mhm.
But like one of my favorite locations is Edinburgh Manor in Scotch Grove, Iowa. We always just tend
Okay.
to get a lot of interaction. And the very first time we were there, we had a lot of equipment interaction, which was really super cool. But we had interaction with this little girl that's supposedly there. So we played games with her in the pool room and things. And on the when I got home, one of the EVPs, when I said, "Okay, well, good night, have a good night. It was great. I had fun with you." And it was a Class A EVP of her saying, "I'm going to miss you."
Oh.
So that was really cool. That always kind of drawn me back. Now I haven't had any interactions with her since, but you get some really good EVPs. Something always happens at that location, and it's just so much fun. It's like an old asylum. It was a poor farm. It was like a drug rehab. It was like a nursing home. Just a lot of history there. A
Oh
lot of
yeah.
deaths that happened there. So yeah, it's just been just a really fun place to go.
I've heard of it before, but I didn't really know the history of it. It sounds like a good location. I'll have to put that on my
Yeah,
list.
definitely. You definitely got to make time to get down to that one.
What's your favorite location in Wisconsin? Have you ever done my state? Have you come?
Yeah, we've been over there a couple times. I think there's just been a handful of ones, but I think I like the Berlin Tannery in Berlin, Wisconsin. Just because it's a really cool old building. It used to be like a cranberry factory. I think it was a leather factory. They really don't have a lot of history of like people dying there or anything. They don't know why it's haunted. But we've got some great EVPs, equipment interaction. They run it as a fake haunted house quite often during the Halloween time. So it's just learning your way around there is kind of crazy at sometimes, all the different halls and twists and turns, and but it's just kind of a really fun building to go to. So we like that one.
That kind of begs, I guess, a deeper question. If a lot of people didn't die there and they're not sure why it's haunted, what's your gut reaction for places where you can't tie a death to why they might be haunted?
I would say it could be the land more than likely, because like I said, we don't know what's happened before that building was placed on there.
Yeah.
And so that could be a lot of it. Sometimes there could be, maybe if it was, say, a worker, somebody who worked there, maybe that was their comfort place. Maybe that made them happy. So when they passed away, that's where they try. I don't know why you'd want to hang out at work after you pass away, but
Yeah.
so there's a whole lot of different reasoning and factors. It could just be a lot of energy that are coming from that, because a lot of churches, a lot of theaters are haunted, and they feel that even though maybe they haven't had a lot of deaths, it's just a lot of the energy that these spirits are drawn to be there.
Yeah. Remember when you were asking the spirits what it was like? Did they ever, mention to where maybe not, I don't know, interdimensional might be the correct word or not? Because I know I've asked the same question and I've got a response to where it was like as if you were looking in a mirror. I don't know if that is anything that you've ever gotten before or.
No, I think just most I've gotten like almost like there's different dimensions,
Yeah.
or different planes that they're on. That's just kind of as far as I've gotten, specific answers on as far as that goes. Maybe I've gotten that they really have no sense of time.
Yeah.
Is kind of another thing I've gotten, and that there are pets up there. That's all I know.
Have you ever had anything follow you home from an investigation, like a hitchhiker?
I have not. I'm really good about you're trying to say a really good prayer and to stay where you are a couple times. And I guess I've always wondered to like look back. Did we or did we not say a prayer for that particular person? And we can't recall. But Donna once actually had an old cowboy follow her home. Like she'd wake up and he's standing at the foot of her bed. And he said, "Excuse me, ma'am." So she's just like,
what?
And she's like, "Where'd you come from?" So she's like sent to like, "You got to go." And Alex had one. He lived in an apartment and he lived there for years. He never had anything happen. And shortly after we got back from somewhere, he started getting his kitchen faucet turning on and off. His dog was growling. The bathroom faucet for the bathtub would turn on and off and start filling with water. So he kind of saged and did that, and then that went away. And then one time Teresa had like down in her basement, they would have like the bathroom door would like shake, like somebody was trying to open it, and just a kind of a weird couple feels. And then she saged, and then that kind of stopped too. So luckily for me, nothing, thank goodness. But
yeah. So you mentioned they saged. Okay, so I sage my home. I don't even know if it really even works. So do you find sometimes that if you ignore it, it goes away, or do you find that sometimes it just kind of piques their interest more to get your attention more?
Oh, I don't know. I guess it depends on where you're at and then the spirit itself.
Mm-hmm.
I used to actually live in a house that was kind of haunted, and you think I would investigate it, but no. So it's like I didn't want to know who I was living with, and
right.
So when I'd feel them around me, I'd be like, okay, I'm kind of busy. Like I'd be on the computer, and you could just feel it come up behind you. I'm like, I'm kind of busy right now. Can you come back? And you'd feel it like. They'd feel like drift away, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it became more or more, at me. I think we just kind of came to the understanding of, I don't bug you, you don't bug me, life is pretty good. So
yeah. That's kind of what I have at my home I just ignore as much as possible. But I know some other people, when they ignore, it's not the same effect. They end up getting more activity.
Yeah, and I think again that kind of stems down to the actual spirit that it is. What does it really want?
Yeah. Gosh. So has anybody else in your group or your investigative group had anything kind of, I don't know, crazy happen to them that was a little more scary than the norm?
Teresa, unfortunately, is our paranormal punching bag, we call her.
Oh.
So she's the one who always gets scratched or pushed or something always happens to her. I don't know what kind of energy she's got. I'm drawing to her. But she, we were at Whispers Estate in Mitchell, Indiana, and it was crazy from the get-go. Like you felt like cobwebs on you the whole night. You're just like this the whole night. Just this crazy intense energy. We saw wet footsteps coming up from the basement, going outside. We just it was just intense. So there's a closet up there too. It's like a big, huge walk-in closet. Like there's even a little table, a couple chairs in there to sit. But the story with it is a guy who went up there just before on his very last day, and he dropped out of a heart attack in front of there. So he's really ticked off. So there's a lot of negative with this closet. A lot of people get locked in, even though it's like the old doorknob that you kind of lift up, shift, and drop down. They get locked in, scratches, pushed, everything. So we're in this closet, me and Teresa, doors wide open. And I don't like closets anyway, because I got a fear getting locked in them. And something in my head just said, get out of this closet. So I stepped out, didn't relay this to Teresa. She's sitting in this chair way in the back. And then the spirit box is running, and we hear, shut this door. And we didn't do that either. And so next thing you know, Teresa and the chair come flying 4 feet out of the room, or out of that closet, and she lands on her knees, and she's like freaking out. She's like, somebody picked up this chair and threw it. And just kind of debunking it. We're like, well, she was leaning too far forward. She would have just fell forward. She wouldn't have been out here in the hallway with the chair. So she's like, yeah, this most incredible force just did that. So she was pretty freaked out about that.
Yeah, that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. So yeah, we had a lot of respect there for old Virgil there for the rest of the night.
So I know people can come to the Boyd House and do their own investigations there. Could you maybe tell us how people can get in contact with you, or how they can find out more about the Boyd House?
Yeah, they can check out the website, and then we just kind of run that through a paranormal group. So that's stcroixparanormal.com. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook under Boyd House or St. Croix Paranormal, or you can direct email us as well at boydhouse217@yahoo.com.
Oh, excellent. We'll put all of those details in the show notes for people who want to go and see it in text as well. Anybody who's either watching or listening at a later date, they'll be able to find those details in the show notes as well. But what a fascinating, adventurous life you must live on these many investigations, and also actually owning a haunted location. I bet you Jen is jealous because she keeps talking about wanting to buy a haunted location.
Yep.
But you were a wonderful guest, Jill. Keep us posted on,
for sure.
especially if you buy another house. I'd love to.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We'll have to have you back to talk about the next one as well when you acquire that. But thank you for coming on, and make sure whatever you do to keep it weird.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're interested in checking out more episodes, you can find us at talkingweird.com. If you haven't already, please like the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talking Weird Podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to Talking Weird. We're available on most podcast platforms and YouTube. And if you do enjoy the show, please leave us a review. Dean and I would really appreciate it. Until then, stay safe and keep it weird.